Welcome to the What's Your Weird Story podcast.
Everyone has at least one good story.
And some of us have stories that are just to the left of normal.
We're interested in the ones that push the boundaries of what we can perceive.
Stories that defy explanations.
Stories with an air of mystery.
Stories we might not share
for fear of being thought of differently.
But don't worry, we're all friends here. So, what's your weird story? Hello, Weirdsville. Welcome once again to the What's Your Weird Story podcast. I am joined today by your host, Barry Johnston, and he is joined by me, your other host, Adam Beebe. Hello, Barry.
What's up, man? How are you?
I am good. And guess what, Barry?
What?
We have another special guest host, guest correspondent, our official Reddit weirdo with us here in the studio, virtually in the studio, or the virtual studio, here with us, a new member to the team, a past guest. It's Bobby.
Hey, Bobby.
Hey, I've never, ever felt better about being called a weirdo.
Hey, we're all weirdos here.
Get used to it.
It's
Yeah.
I mean, it's Weirdsville, you know?
Yeah.
That's what we're all about, you know?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. Bobby, she's done some grunt work for us in the Reddit forums, and we're just, happy to have her on. She was able to get a guest for us that, she's got some cool stories, man, and I'm so happy that we were able to get her on. And that's what the whole thing is about, developing a community and having friends help each other out. And it's just great for you to be here, Bobby. Thank you so much for taking the time out to hang with a bunch of weird middle-aged dudes.
My kin.
So Bobby is our official, this is her title, the official Reddit weirdo. And she is Bobby. Okay, so I know a lot of people out there know what Reddit is, but there's people out there who don't know what Reddit is. So can you kind of give those of us who don't really understand it what it is, except for a place to find pictures of like cute animals?
Yeah.
What exactly is it? Because I mean, seriously, I've tried to crack into Reddit, and it's just completely incomprehensible to me.
Yeah. I think for a few years I was still trying to crack into Reddit and understand it for 5 or 6 years. And once it clicked, I was like, I don't understand what my problem is. I can't understand it. But
I've never felt more middle-aged than me saying, please explain this to me.
Yeah, well, it's a weird place, and you have to kind of navigate it by just falling into it. But when I first started using it, I kind of, that scene in Zoolander where they're around the computer and they're slapping it, Ooh, that's what it. But no, Reddit's awesome because it's basically what I feel like maybe a long time ago. What an underground community was like.
Right.
And you get people there who are so into something specifically, they're just really into it, and there's not a lot of people who are into it to talk to in real life.
Yeah.
So all those people get together on Reddit. My introduction to Reddit was the John Titor. Is that how it's pronounced? John Titor time travel guy.
Okay.
And he's this guy that there's just this legend about him, and he's so big in the time travel community that there's episodes about him in this time travel anime called Steins Gate. But the whole story is based around that. But basically this guy gets on a forum on a computer, and he starts talking about how he's from the future, and he had to come back because he needed to find software or code from the 1980s or something. And I ran across it on accident, and then I saw like 2 days later, a news article on this company it was when we were doing the coronavirus stimulus things and people were having to sign up for unemployment.
Right.
One of the cities or states, I don't remember which one, they couldn't get it to work because the code was from like the early 1990s or something. So they're like, we need to find someone who speaks this dead coding language. And so then I just fell down this rabbit hole. And that's basically what Reddit is. It's a bunch of rabbit holes, but those rabbit holes are filled with real people in real time going down the rabbit hole with you. And it's glorious.
Interesting. Yeah.
So it's like an old school bulletin board kind of a thing where, the computer stuff, the early days of the internet and all of that stuff, which again, I am not necessarily a Luddite by, or Luddite, I suppose, by intention. It's just that I've never been super tech guy. As I've often told my mom, who asks me for every time there's some kind of computer problem, as I say, I'm a nerd, but I'm not that kind of nerd. So cool.
Now I want a super tech guy comic book starring Adam. The first issue is just going to be you trying to figure out Reddit.
Well, everything around me burns. So yeah.
I'd pay for that. But you knocked it out of the park. Whatever kind of magic you're doing, whatever kind of witchcraft you're doing over there on the Reddit forum, we appreciate it. Because God knows we wouldn't be able to do it. But you got us a great one today. Her name is Gabby, and she's got some great stories, and I'm so excited to bring on someone new. It's a great example here. This storytelling and the conversation that we had of someone that had a story and it developed into something bigger, and so. Great stuff, and we appreciate her coming on. And Bobby, would you like to do the honors?
Yeah. So Gabby's story, obviously I want her to tell it, but it's just really, really interesting because when you read it, you start to think that you know what it is. And then she says something else, and then you're like, oh no, that's not, I was completely wrong. And she's just so down to earth about it. But I'm happy that Gabby is willing to talk about it, because I think most people are naturally shy about weird stories. And then once you start talking to somebody and they let it all out and get their weird out there, they feel comfortable, and then it all comes out. So hopefully Gabby's going to have some something like that. But Gabby, is this when I do it?
Yeah. You're good.
Yes.
Okay.
You're good.
But Gabby, thanks for being here. And what's your weird story?
Okay. Well, I work at the Home Depot, and where it's located is kind of in the heart of where our town comes off the interstate. And it's got a road that goes back to, the state road by the water. But in between that area, it gets pretty dark at night. And I was working night shifts for the last week, and it was dark every time I left. It was like 10 p.m. and there was no one else out on the roads because everybody at that time had been home. And usually it was just a straightforward drive. I'd put in my music. I would just drive. And this one night, I don't know, I was driving, and the street lights, a couple of them were out. Then there was one on. And on the sidewalk, I saw standing there was it looked like a dog. And I know we have a lot of feral cat colonies, but stray dogs are a bit harder to come by where I am just because they get scooped up so fast. We have so many animal shelters and rescue places. And I was like, that's weird. And while I'm driving, it's farther enough out, a distant stop sign or whatever. And I'm driving 50 miles an hour, and it's standing there kind of looking at me, and it runs across. And the way it ran, I was like, that's weird, because it was so fast. And as I'm continuing to drive, and it just ran into the forest, I'm continuing to drive, like, what was that? Because it didn't look like a dog. And, I like dogs. I always wanted one, so I'd research all things about dogs. And, it didn't look like a dog. The way it ran, it was kind of like a human on all fours. Its neck was short. Its face was like rounded. Like it looked emaciated, like gray almost. And it just ran across, and that was it. And the back legs of a dog, they tend to go out like, kind of like pointing that way. And instead it bent forward like how a person's would. And so I was confused. I came home and I was actually pretty rattled up because at that point I had enough time to think about it and was like, okay, what I saw was not a dog. So I was freaked out.
Yeah.
A couple of days later, I'm still unnerved. I finally post on Reddit about it because I, just kind of want to see if anyone else had dealt with that. Maybe it was some sort of dog. And I actually, like a day later or so, I talked to my sister. She's like, well, maybe it was a greyhound. And so I started looking at pictures and, GIFs of greyhounds running. And it just didn't match because the way the rear end of the thing that ran across the road, it went up. Like when you see and then the greyhounds, they always kind of keep it straight and smooth, and they have a long tail. That thing did not have a tail at all. It had a long neck. Greyhounds have long necks, and the thing I saw did not have a long neck. So I just, honestly, I don't know what I saw. And that's my weird story, I guess.
Wow.
That's wild.
Yeah.
And
It's those ones when you're still thinking about it, like trying to figure it out for so long afterwards, messes with you a little bit.
yeah.
It does, and it's like I kept thinking, like, oh, okay, dogs have this, that did not. Dogs do this, that did not. That ran across fast. Like, I don't even know. Why did it just stand there and look at me? I don't know. Just
do you have an idea about how big it was?
If it were standing on all fours in front of me, I would say that it was under a yard at the shoulder.
Okay.
Under a yard tall. I'm not good with like measurements and dimensions and things like that.
Yeah.
But, like if you know the size of a large or a medium-sized moving box sort of thing.
Yeah.
Probably a bit like that size.
Wow. What kind of response did you get on Reddit? Like, anyone suggest that it might be something that clicked with you at all?
There was a lot of people saying that I saw something called a crawler, and I looked more into that, and I was like, I mean, I guess it's possible, but it didn't have the backwards legs like that.
Right.
And then they were all like, well, crawlers are supposed to be really, really tall, and what you saw didn't seem that tall and big. And like, yeah, no, you're right. I don't know. And then after a while, the post, it died, like most Reddit posts do.
Right.
Wow. Have there been any reports like that of anything like that around there before you saw that? Or were you the first one that you know of that saw that?
I haven't really told it to a lot of people, so I don't honestly know.
Yeah.
I don't know if people have talked about other things being sighted.
Yeah.
Like I said, as far as stray dogs, though, we don't have a lot, because there are so many shelters and things that'll just scoop them up.
Sure. Yeah.
We've heard of like dog type people, where they look like basically kind of have a body kind of like a Sasquatch, but they have like a dog head. And we've heard about that, but this kind of reminds me of the rake, which one of our guests was telling us a story about how she saw this rake thing. And, there's no actual picture of a rake, but, if you go and you look up artist renditions of what witnesses have seen it, I mean, it's got this long, thin body, and it's got a round head, and it's, like that coloring that you describe, and it seems to where it sometimes will run on all fours. Have you got? Can you look one up right now? I'm curious if it's that.
I don't know.
How's it spelled?
Rake.
Okay.
Yeah, they're
That was
creepy
the weirdest
looking.
thing, I think, was when she said that the head was round.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're reading something like that, I think it's just human nature to try and make it fit into your understanding of things. So you
Oh,
want
sure,
it to
yeah.
be a dog or a coyote or whatever,
Right.
but the round head, like with the rest of it I guess I could see. But the round head is what really throws me off. And then the fact that when you were going by it, you mentioned that in the story that you slowed down because you knew in the moment that, like, wait, that's not right.
It was there.
That's not.
Yeah, and it's not right.
Yeah, which is very different than seeing something for a split second and then after the fact saying, well, that didn't make sense, because we can just do that anyway with our minds. But you knew once you saw it that something was weird about it. Which is just cool, because those experiences are cool, but they bug you forever.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I was very unsettled that night and the next nights. Like, it was awful.
Understandably so, because I mean, what you saw, I mean, it sounds a bit nightmarish. You know, it sounds like something that comes out of, you know, a dark part of your brain, or you know, some dark corner of reality, or between. You know, maybe it's something that's gone between dimensions. You know, we have no clue. You know, and we're not, you know, we're not researchers into finding truth. We're just people that like to hear good stories and talk about it and stuff. But like, it seems, you know, I mean, you knew enough about it that you realized that the way it runs was not dog-like. The legs, I mean, you really observed this thing. So, I mean, that gives it a lot of credibility to me. You know, and I mean, that's what makes a good story. And it tells me that this thing was impactful. But like the legs, you know, moving like that, you know, not too many, you know, the animals like us, like people that stand upright have the front moving leg, you know, have the where our joints are as positioned as they are, you know, because we don't need to use them like cats and dogs have their legs, and goats and all the, to, you know, propel them on all fours. Yeah. We have it that are better adapted for, you know, standing on two legs. And I mean, you know, gorillas and monkeys, primates, you know, in general have this kind of thing. I think gorillas' knees bend backwards, not gorillas, elephants' knees bend backward as well, but I may be getting that wrong. I think they have their limbs are like ours, where the front will go bend toward the front, like our elbows. If you get down on your fours, you know, your elbows go front, and then your knees go, the legs go back. I think elephants are like that, but I could be wrong on that.
I'm pretty sure they are. I mean, my sister's terrified because she says the baby elephants look like people in suits. So she hates baby elephants.
That is true. That is really true.
That's funny. That's funny.
But
so
yeah,
I found a picture.
Oh, you found it of
of a rake couple.
Yeah.
Gabby, if I put it up to the what is that? Oh my God.
Camera.
The camera? The capture machine? Would you be able to see it? We'll give it a shot. I don't know.
I should be able to.
Oh, wow. That's very bright. You see that?
There's one.
Yeah,
and the legs look similar, but what I've noticed in all of these is the eyes. Like, it has like a human-ish body, but the eyes are really, really big and round.
Oh, yeah. Did really unsettling.
Yeah, the rake is very, yeah.
And this one's on all fours, too.
Did you get a good look at you saw that you saw that it was a rounded head, but did you see anything kind of facial feature wise?
Like I said, it was pretty dark. So basically the only thing that illuminated was the back.
Right.
So it was the lights were on it halfway, and then most of it was just shadow. Just because of how the street lights were aimed.
Yeah.
Was it furry?
Right. No.
Oh.
Did it have
That's freaky.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Back have it? Did the back look like it was like a dog's back, or was it more broad, like a kind of like a bipedal, you know, like us, or, you know, something like, you know, with a broader back? As far, you know, because like the dogs will go, it's a little, they're narrower because the legs go down and they don't need the upper body strength for, you know, and the positioning of the arms. You know, I'm trying to be as biologically sound as I can here, but I'm not doing it.
Were they skinny like a dog?
Yeah.
The shoulders were kind of like wide apart,
Okay.
from the way it was like running. And then again with the back, it too was pretty wide apart compared to how a dog's look. Like I said, I looked up just before I started this again. You know, the animation clips of greyhounds running, dogs running, compared to like the guy who ran and set a world record on all fours.
Mm-hmm.
And from like the side, the greyhound doesn't match it. It could if you were skeptic or something like that, or like trying your best to fit it into something normal. But it just, from what I saw, it didn't match it enough to feel comfortable saying, yeah, that's what I saw. And seeing the human running, it matched way better.
Wow.
So like just the thickness, I guess.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Have you seen, there's this video that I saw recently I was originally looking at dinosaur videos, and then this documentary from like CBS or PBS or something forever ago came on. And this guy, this paleontologist had like done a rendition and then made a life-size model of what dinosaurs would look like if they had evolved with us. And it was very, very human looking. It had like, it wasn't like furry, obviously. It was, you know, more like scaly looking, but not scaly. More bird-like, I guess, the skin. And then the legs were like that. And that's kind of, but also they had a rounder head. It wasn't like they didn't really have like a reptilian head or anything like that.
Right.
So it kind of reminds me of that.
Right. Yeah. Could be shapeshifters or who knows, man.
Well, that's a good point that you bring up, Barry. It could be some kind of a shapeshifter, and Florida has a lot of, I don't know if they have, like, you know, the skin, I don't know if they have a version of skinwalkers or something down there in, is it the Seminole that are big in Florida? That's their, I don't know, and Seminole has a kind of, like the same kind of like shapeshifting counterpart to like a skinwalker that they do out west, but you know, it could be something like that.
Yeah.
Because those
Along
things.
those lines.
Yeah.
Had you seen anything else like strange, or is this the first weird thing that you've seen?
I would say this is the first real close encounter with something strange. I mean, I've seen strange lights out at my grandparents' farm. I've seen strange stuff at my grandparents' farm. But this was the first real thing that was like right there.
Yeah.
In front of me. It's
right.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. We were talking to a guy last week he lives out in New Mexico, in Colorado, like on the border there. And he has all kinds of crazy stories about seeing odd animals and things like that. And we were talking before about, I had seen one time a moose in the wild and did not know what I was looking at because I wasn't expecting it. And I was just like, what is that thing, man? My brain couldn't wrap itself around what I was looking at. And it wasn't until later on in the day when I was like, oh my gosh, I think I saw a moose. But to me at the time, it looked like an alien, man. It was like, this is the weirdest thing I've ever seen, man. It's huge, but it looks kind of like a horse, but it's not a horse, you know? It's like, it was so odd. And so like your story, when you were talking about trying to figure out like what I just saw was not something that I have ever seen. I mean, you know that as a person, like, you know, when you've seen a dog, you know, I mean, everybody's seen dogs. So the fact that it just didn't have that, you know, and that it didn't click in your head that, you know, it had been seen by you before that's interesting.
Right. And this is like a road that I've driven on for so long. I mean, I've lived in this town all my life. I know this road like the back of my hand.
Right.
And I've driven on day and night and hadn't seen something like that. And that's the only thing that I'd seen that really honestly freaked me out. Really bad.
Wow.
I'm kind of interested in because farms are just cool. And so are grandparents' houses. I really kind of want to know more about that.
Yeah, I mean, so their farm, it's almost about 15 minutes away from where I am. It's in more of the redneck area of town. And where their farm is, it's on the end of a dirt road right next to a preserve that's hundreds of acres. So my grandparents used to be horse breeders, so they had a lot of land, a lot of trees, things like that, pastures. They slowly went out of the business, but me and my sister would still take the horses out and explore the acreage and come back. And as we got older and stuff, we would take the horses out for longer and come back later. And that's when a lot of the weird stuff started happening. Because like at night, their place has always been creepy at night. I still hate going by their gate because their house is over here, their gate's over here. It's pitch black. You'll hear noises, things like that. But I remember one night I was with my cousin and it was pitch black, just the stars out and some of the houses over the field. And he looks up at the sky and he's like, "What are those?" And I look up and there's just these, they look like stars, like planes kind of. And it's just these lights moving in a sort of box fashion, I guess. And we both kind of stared at it for a while. I was like, "I don't know what that is." And he's like, "Okay, let's just close the gate and go." So we closed the gate and ran. That's a strange light story. I had seen those later on in my life. Not recently, though. More of like if I go anywhere near large swamp areas, driving out to Orlando or whatever at night, I'll sometimes see just this box lights looking things. They're tiny little stars.
Right.
But they always do that kind of formation, that kind of...
the kind of box formation.
Right,
kinda.
Interesting.
What color are they?
They're usually about like yellowish, whitish, like stars.
Yeah.
So that's like, it's really strange to see that. Because you think if it was like a plane or a drone, they'd have some sort of hint of blue or green or whatever, but
Right.
they didn't.
You ever see those? Do you ever see the footage of the formations that were taken? I think off the East Coast. There's a couple of different clips. I mean, they've been captured other places, of course, but there's a bunch of these lights, like you're talking about, a bunch of them out in the sky, and they're just like, they keep like sort of crossing each other and like doing all this crazy stuff. And the footage I saw was taken from a boat, and it was a boatload of people. It was like a party boat or something like that. It was like a pretty big boat, and all these people are like, what? They're all trying to figure out like, what is that? It almost, they kind of almost looked like the lanterns, that you let off into the sky, they burn, but like they were moving in these really odd patterns. They weren't floating. It's crazy stuff. And that's knowing where you live.
I've never heard square before.
Probably the only way I can describe it.
Yeah. That's really interesting. I've heard triangle, sporadic, but never square. And especially constantly in that order, right? It was just like...
It was just... And you're looking at the sky, the night sky, all these stars, especially out there, you can see all the stars. And you know that over in Orlando, there's the airport. So you would expect to see airplanes. So we didn't think anything of looking up at the sky, and like, oh, that's strange light. It's an airplane. But this was it was so weird. And that's probably why we booked it back to the house.
Yeah. I was thinking about whenever you said that you'd walk by their gate and you'd like already be freaked out. Like I remember I've like walked by places and then I get those chills because I can just remember how I felt when I was there before. It's like ultimate nostalgia, but fear nostalgia.
Hey, that's a nice t-shirt you got on there.
Oh, thanks, dude. It's brand new. Do you like that? It's one of the official What's Your Weird Story t-shirts.
Where'd you get that?
It's funny that you ask. I just got it off the brand new Spreadshirt.com site for the What's Your Weird Story podcast. There's no www. You just go straight to shop.spreadshirt.com/what's without the apostrophe WHATS -YEO WEIRD-STORY, and that'll take you right there.
I mean, you can never own enough clothing.
Well, it's true, Barry. There's t-shirts for the ladies because, they're cut differently. There's hoodies, which are really cool. There's 2 different kinds of hoodies, and there's also tote bags, so you can tote your stuff.
That's so cool, man.
So if you guys go out to spreadshirt.com, What's Your Weird Story? Currently, there are 2 designs, but there will be more going up very soon. So just keep your eyes out for that. And if you decide to get one of our shirts, tag yourself on Instagram to ours or Facebook. Show your love. Show us what you got. Let's see your true colors. So I've seen like you said, the white dot kind of UFOs. In fact, ironically, I was hanging out with a friend of mine out in the country on a dirt road because we grew up in a small country town, so that's kind of what you would do. And so I was out there and I was telling him a story about this other UFO weird thing, missing time experience that I had. And we were looking off to the south, and we see these 3 lights, and like they're just moving around. One is moving kind of slow, one's moving kind of fast, and one's just going on a straight line. And so they kind of like pull together into like a similar type of, to like a formation, and then they stop for a minute. And my buddy is freaking out because he is, he's like, oh my god, he's never seen anything like this before. It's like, they're coming to get us, oh my god. And I was like, dude, don't worry, man, it's totally cool. It's like, if they were coming to get us, we wouldn't have even seen them, man. So we're all good. We're good. And so it seemed to ease him, but man, yeah, it was very strange because then all of a sudden they just go boom, 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 all 3 in different directions, just like that, just way off into the horizon, and you couldn't see where they went at all. So it was wild. But yeah, it was the same thing where it was those same where if you weren't paying attention, you would have thought they were stars. And then once you were paying attention to them, you would have realized that the stars are moving really fast. Stars don't move like that. They're not, of course, they're not satellites either. There he is. They're not satellites either, because satellites will go in that straight line and they'll blink sometimes, if you've ever seen a satellite. Because the very first time I saw a satellite, I thought I saw a UFO. I was very excited about it. And then somebody told me, no, you are not seeing a UFO. You're seeing a satellite. And but yeah, so I know the difference, so yeah. But
that's like when Elon Musk sent up the Starlink. The night when it was first visible, there was just like this whole line of them, and they're like, my boyfriend's parents got freaked out, and they were videotaping it and all, and I was at work, so I wasn't able to see. When I got home, he was showing me, he's like, look at this, what do you think of this? Oh, those are satellites. He's like, yeah, well, we were UFOs at first.
Yeah.
It's like,
well,
I think I've seen a UFO.
Until you got there were UFOs for sure. So.
Right, yeah.
Have you heard of the, and Adam actually told me about this, and it shot me into a weird place for about a week. But that news article that you sent me about the oh my gosh, was it Congress or something where they talked about it? Or was it just NASA talking about it? I don't remember. Or the Air Force? I don't remember. Anyway, our government was saying, like, openly admitting for everyone to hear that we found a vehicle, right?
Yeah.
Was not made on Earth.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That was Harry Reid. New York Times did a story on all the stuff that's come out with the Navy tapes they've talked about, and Harry Reid was quoted as saying is that they have something he believes. He had to go back and assert himself in saying that he's not saying that we have it, but
he did say we had it.
But we basically have in our possession vehicles that are not of this world, and it's his belief that they exist and that we need to spend money and research in trying to figure out what this stuff is. Now, we all know that's been going on for a long time. Our government's already been researching it, and we know what's going on. But yeah, no, it is. It's like, wow, the fact that they admitted something like that in public is, it's interesting. If anything else, it's interesting.
Well, especially since we have the big Space Force now that's going on.
Right.
It's just the timing is really, really
right. Well, yeah, and if you think about it, I mean, these are obviously the major power, governments. They want to know what's out there and what's invading airspaces, and so it's within their. They have the ability to see a lot of this stuff, and I think they have it in the public's best interest to figure out what's going on, because obviously it's not something that they can control, and they admit it as much. And I'll say this, I've talked about this before on the podcast, but a really interesting interview is on the Joe Rogan Experience. He interviews the pilot of the Navy tapes, the Tic Tac tapes, and it's mind blowing because he's when you're watching the footage, it's hard to see what's going on, but when he's putting it into context, it blows your mind. It's like, this guy is a career, Navy pilot. Why would he come out and talk about this stuff? I mean, he's putting his whole, life's work on the line.
And he's a recluse too, isn't he? He really doesn't.
Yeah, he doesn't want to have anything to do with this stuff. It's just he's in a position where he needs to. Same thing with Bob Lazar, man. He had an interview that was also on Rogan. Bob Lazar does not give interviews readily, and he was on the Rogan Experience and talking about his whole thing. And yeah, it's interesting. It's a subject I'm fascinated with. So we've talked about it ad nauseum. So I don't want to go too deep, but. It's great. I mean, people see stuff like this, and we're seeing more of it because people have cell phones now.
Yeah, we're getting better quality footage, but we're also in the era of deep fakes and incredible Photoshop and CGI. Yeah. So it's really hard to just, to see, everything looks, it looks like CGI. Everything looks like CGI. But that's because CGI has gotten to the point to where, if it's a clear enough camera, real life looks like CGI. If I clean my glasses off on a regular basis, everything looks like CGI. So, that's where we are.
It's true.
All the more reason to learn it, though, so that you can discern better.
Right.
Pick it
true
up.
Enough.
Yeah.
True.
That's very true.
Did you ever have any, other than the lights and this freaky thing, did you ever have any experiences that were more just more like a spine chilling type thing? I really I'm so convinced that farms are so weird. I'm obsessed with it a little bit right now with your grandparents' farm. I'm sorry. I can't stop thinking about it. There has to be more about that farm, because my mom grew up on a farm, and she said it was just always a strange place. Always.
I know that on the farm, when my mom was pregnant, she had my sister, and they would go on walks, and they were stalked by a Florida panther once. That's not for me, but I think that's kind of scary. Because technically I was there. But as far as actually, besides the lights, like I said about the gate, it's extremely freaky. And going out there at night, I've always just hated it. Because the feeling of being watched by that gate and just anywhere outside of there when it's dark, it's just so prevalent. It's I still will ask my grandma, "Hey grandma, ride with me out to the gate so you can close it and I don't have to get out my car." That's how bad it is. And I feel so bad asking her, but she's like, I live here, I know the feeling, I'll do it, whatever. But like during the day, there's nothing really out there that will freak me out. It's once the sun goes down, it's just that feeling of being watched. I know that she has said that before they built the house there, that property was used mainly for parties. And then other kinds of people would go out there and do stuff, and they found all sorts of like paraphernalia, all sorts of just awful stuff. So the kind of stuff that's tailored onto that property, it originally was really bad. And even like they were like, hey, we can't stay here, this is crazy. Just the feeling of being watched. And gradually it moved towards just the gate is where you'll mostly feel that feeling.
Interesting. So it's not just you that feels it, it's everybody. I mean, at least it's been confirmed by your grandma and your, I guess maybe your cousin. I can't remember if that was
my cousin. Yeah, my sister, my younger siblings.
Well, it seems like there's something going on. Yeah. If you're feeling that, because that's a heaviness and that's something. But at least it's gone away from. I just knocked my mic out of my hand, in front of me. It's gone away from the house, right, in the living area. That's good. That's real good. That's a good thing. But it's gone to the gate, which is just weird because it's like, is it something that's like it wants to like possess you, wants to keep you there, it wants you to hold you in, or is it trying to escape and it can't? I don't know. It's just weird though. But that's a strange. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a strange energy.
I feel like whatever it is, it used to have the property. It doesn't now, but it refuses to leave.
Right. Right.
My grandma said that's the furthest it wants to go from their house. Because there's 2 gates, and the front gate is the one that it's decided not to leave. Because that's where you'll feel, you just walk out there, you have to close it so that, no one comes in at night, and you'll just feel it. So when I have to close the gate, I'm just running because it's an awful feeling.
Look, I've been there. I mean, because Barry and I grew up in a very rural area, and like we, spent a lot of times on farms when we were kids, and there's a difference about getting out at night and having to close. Getting out of the car to open and close the gate sucks regardless. But I mean, at night though, especially when you're little, it's a little bit more spooky because you don't know what's coming on, and you don't want the cows to get out or anything like that. If you got anything in there, because if cows get out, it is such a hassle.
It's horrible.
One time, I don't think I've told this on the podcast, and it's completely unrelated, except there's a gate and it was not closed properly, but and everybody in our hometown is gonna really appreciate this one, but it's a funny story. So my friend Jeff, who's our special correspondent and resident Bigfoot expert, his grandpa had these 2 Rock Island railroad boxcars out on some of his farm property, and it was about a mile outside of town. And he had them converted into basically like storage barn type things and an office in one of them. So he had electricity running in, and he had like a card table there, and he had a refrigerator and a radio and lights and everything. And we would go out there in the summertime in high school and college and hang out and, like drink beers and whatever, because we didn't have places, in our small town. Nobody had, it was a small town. You didn't have a place to go. So we go out there and we hang out and, play cards and do whatever. So one night we were out hanging out at the Rock, because that's what we called it, because it's 2 Rock Island things, really clever. But we were out hanging out at the Rock, and there's a gate you close, and you close the gate so that one, nobody will come in unless you hear them come in. And 2, there's sometimes cattle there on the property. And so we always remember, everybody always has to get out. Somebody's got to get out, make sure they open and close the gate. And that night, somebody came in, joined us later, and they didn't close the gate. They just left it open. And so we're all leaving, and it's probably like 2:33 in the morning, and we go outside, and and we're in various stage of sobriety at this point, and we realize, all of a sudden, oh shit, the gate is open. Oh shit, the cattle are not in the pasture, and so there's the rock leads out to a road that goes up to an area, an old part of what used to be. There used to be a college there in our town, and now it's a little housing development area. It's called College Hill. Again, very clever. The road goes up to College Hill about 2 miles or 3 miles, to the north, and then just about 50 yards to, if not even 50 yards, probably like 20 yards to the south, there's a main highway going into town. And so we're freaking out because if the cows got out and they get on that main highway, people are going to be coming and hitting them at like 65, 70 miles an hour, and there's going to be lots of, metal and ground beef everywhere. So that's bad news. But fortunately, there wasn't anything there. We got out and somebody could hear or see the cattle on the other end going towards College Hill. So we're like, okay, cool. Now, what do we do? So we sit there. We're like, well, we got to get them and we got to herd them back this way. How will we do that? And we don't know, but we've got to do it because none of us are cowboys. We don't know what we're doing here. And so I stay at the gate. I'm the gatekeeper. And my job is to be there to open the gate when they're coming and close it when they go in. However, we're going to make this happen. But we're going to make this happen. So we got Jimmy, his car there, and we put it in the road, in the middle of the road, so that if the cows start coming, they'll see that, and hopefully they'll go away from the Jimmy and towards the open gate, And so the rest of them, our friends and everybody else, they all go down to where the cows are, and they start getting out in the ditch, and they're like, yeah, cow, like we see in the movies and stuff. And so the cows are kind of like, they move a little bit. So, and then somebody gets their car and they bring them out, and they're kind of like start flashing our lights, and then the cows get a little spooked, and so they start moving. And so they're going faster and faster, and then all of a sudden the cows are running. It's a stampede. I'm down on the other end all by myself. Just me in the car waiting, and they're like, they're coming. And I see that they're coming. I'm like, oh shit. And so what do I do? So I go and I run and I open the gate, and then I'm like, wait a second, they're coming really fast. They're just going to blow right past me. So I run, and after I run, I open the gate, then I run back, and I jump in Jeff's car, and I just start honking the horn and flashing the lights. And like all of a sudden, all those cows, the entire herd just curves, and they go right into the gate, and then right in, and everybody comes running out, and we close the gate, and we're high-fiving all around, and everybody's like, woohoo, yes, we are cowboys. And we were so proud, but we would have been so screwed if any single one of the cows had gotten hit.
That's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. So, but yeah. So anyway, that's my gate story.
That's terrifying. I just kept thinking of Simba, like with the stampede.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Man, that was so scary. It's like I didn't know what to do, but it just was like it just occurred to me to like honk the horn and scare them and flash the lights, and so.
That's funny.
Split instant and everything perfectly. So
wild.
Yeah, man. Farms are crazy. They're, it's reality, times a million, because you're working with the land and you're working with animals and all that kind of stuff. And also where you live too, Gabby, there's a lot of history there, a lot of Native American imprints, and stuff like that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's some of that also.
Yeah.
You never know. You never know. And, and NASA's weird too. So you never know.
Did your grandma have any theories about what you felt like was watching you?
At the gate? Mm-hmm. She thinks that most likely it's some sort of demon or negative spirit, something like that, as far as what I saw run across the road. at a loss. She has no idea.
I would
It's funny,
I don't know so much.
She has dogs, and
I'm not sure. I mean, it could be a demon, but it does seem like there's something heavy there at the gate,
right.
you know, and it's wanting to make its presence known for sure. And it's apparently being very successful because everybody's feeling it. There are people outside of the family. Have they felt that?
I haven't really talked to anybody when they like visit about the gate or anything. I know a couple times we've had close friends who like, I don't want to close the gate. It's spooky out there, and that's about the extent of it.
So it does.
Yeah, I don't know.
So I guess it kind of does, though, if it's close family. Somebody, if anybody's saying that, if they're saying they get that spooky feeling, then yeah, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Cool. That's great. I mean, thank you, Gabby, for taking time out to and Bobby for getting Gabby. I mean, it's so cool that we've had a prior guest that helps get folks to come on and tell these wild stories. This is what we do. We enjoy it, and we love talking to people like yourself. And thank you both for coming on.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, well, Bobby's now officially a special correspondent. So
beautiful. Yeah,
that's what happens when you live in the weird part of Reddit on the internet. that's where you find kinship.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome.
Cool. Well, Gabby, did you have anything else for us? Any other stories that you can think of? I know, because sometimes it pops up whenever you're just talking about stuff. You kind of remember more.
So, the voices would be at my last house when I still lived with my parents. I had a room right next to my younger sister, and I guess she's a light sleeper because I had my TV on the wall of her room. And, well, if I tried to watch TV at night, she would come over, knock on the door, say, "Quiet down, turn it down." So one night she kept doing that, and I was like, you know what? Forget it. I'm just going to put it on mute, put on subtitles. And ever since then, I still watch with subtitles. But I'm watching it on subtitles, and I hear her come over and knock again. And she's like, "I said to quiet it down. I'm trying to sleep. You're so loud." And I'm like, "I have it on mute. There's no way you can hear me. I am doing nothing in this room." And she's like, "Well, then what is all that banging?" And then we both quieted down, and all of a sudden it just sounded like a book flew across the room. I was like, "Okay, you can sleep in my room tonight."
Whoa.
And it's funny. I was just talking to her today about this, and she's like, "That still scares me," because as she was we're making her bed in my room, we just keep hearing things being thrown around in her room, and just these thuds and crashes in her room. And then the next night, I can't remember if it was the next night or the night before, where we were all asleep, and I was still awake trying to get to sleep, but I kept hearing 3 distinct voices from her room. And at first I thought it was maybe my mom and my stepdad and her talking. Maybe she had gotten up late or something, whatever, disciplining her. Because it was 2 feminine voices. So I thought it was my mom and my sister, and one more masculine voice. And the masculine voice was very upset. And the 2 feminine voices were kind of upset but talking back normally. And it was muffled, but you know how voices sound in the other room?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how it sounded. And I was like, I wish they would shut up so I could get to sleep. Eventually, I just went to sleep. And in the morning, I'd ask Mom, "Hey, why were you guys so loud last night?" Because I could hear everything and I couldn't go to sleep. And Mom's like, "I went to bed right after Bethany did. I wasn't in her room." I was like, "Wait, what? Was Chris?" And she's like, "No, he goes to sleep at 6.
Wow.
And then I asked Beth, and she's like, "No, I was asleep the whole time." So I don't know about that one. It was so weird.
Room?
It was in her
your
room.
Sister's room?
Yeah, both times.
Oh, man. Yeah, me too. Yeah, there's something going on there, it seems.
Wow.
That's pretty classic. You hear the voices in other rooms. That seems like, you hear that a lot with hauntings and stuff. And, it reminds me of one of our guests who was talking about this house that her grandma, I think it was her grandmother lived in, and they were there. She was there cleaning or doing something, and she heard conversations, people having conversations in other parts of the house, but she was the only person there.
Yeah.
So, and of course, with the pounding and the book sound of the book being thrown, all that stuff. I mean, that's pretty classic. You should ask your sister about, maybe she's forcefully forgotten some scary event. Maybe actually you don't ask her. You don't want to drag up anything that she's not ready to address. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, she talked about it perfectly fine today. I feel like she'd talk about it normally if anything like that happened again. Mm-hmm. But luckily now she's a pretty heavy sleeper. So.
Well, I imagine that she'd have to with all that banging.
Yeah.
And
I wonder if it was that room where it's like, forget it, I'm just going to fall asleep, even though there's stuff being thrown around or whatever.
Right.
That's scary when it's actually stuff flying around you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, I guess you asked another scary story. Just one last thing. Again, with the feeling of, something there. My biological father, he had this townhouse. It was great. It was nice and big, but there's one bathroom in the front that everybody refused to go in. They all hated it. They'd all go to the upstairs bathroom. No one, even guests. We had cousins. We were playing hide and seek in the house while my dad was having a block party outside. And all of a sudden, my cousin Giovanni was like, guys, get down here right now. We all come down, and he had peed his pants. And we're like, Giovanni, the bathroom's right there. He's like, I don't want to go in that one. That one's scary. It was scary enough that he'd rather pee his pants.
Wow.
And when I'd have to go in there, because my sister was using the bathroom upstairs, I would drag one of the dogs in there so I wasn't alone, and they hated it. They were whining and stuff and just so upset. And I guess that's it.
Wow.
Wow, that's a lot, though.
That is. That's a lot more. Yeah.
Bathrooms, I have always thought bathrooms are just kind of weird. Like, a lot of bad things happen in bathrooms.
Right.
Like, you think about rooms in the house and where people go to hide, where people go to, be alone or whatever. It's a bathroom.
Yep. And also where people are sick.
Yeah.
And they have, they're having bathrooms can be full of a lot of high charged emotions,
Right.
Man.
Wow. Yeah. Man.
Wow.
Was it where was the bathroom like an under the stairs kind of bathroom, or was it? That's what in my mind I'm seeing, or is it just like a?
So the way the townhouse was, it was just a straight shot. The stairs were on the side that went up, and the bathroom was besides the stairs.
Okay.
So the way the stairs went up, it was just besides. It wasn't underneath them or anything. Okay. But it was by the front door.
Yeah. Interesting.
But nothing entirely special about it, just that everyone hated to use it.
Yeah. It's wild.
Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thanks again, man. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it was great. It was fun. And the great stories. And I mean, and a variety. And I always love it when somebody's like, oh, I've got this one thing. And then you start to remember all these other things that you just kind of push to the side. You know, right. You don't necessarily forget, but you just kind of put them to the side because it's the stuff that you can't, that you have a difficult time processing. Because all your stories, you're hesitant to put a name on anything. You know, you're hesitant to say like, oh yeah, it's a haunted bathroom, or oh yeah, you know, there was ghosts, you know, knocking on the walls, or so it's just, or there was ghosts talking or something like that. But you know, it's still, you know, it's really cool because the one thing so often leads to the many. Cool. Awesome. Thanks again.
Yeah, Gabby, thank you.
Again, thank you for having me.
And thanks again to Bobby, our new Reddit special correspondent. And well, I'll come up with a better title for you officially.
No, I like that. Reddit weirdo. I'll take it.
There we go. Our official Reddit weirdo. Hey man, did I ever tell you about this recent thing that happened to me? I was driving around in the country and it was just after dusk. So there's a little bit of light still coming on out of the sky, but it was mostly dark. I saw this black school bus.
I don't think I've ever heard this.
Okay, so I saw this black school bus. All the windows were tinted and it started following me for about 15 minutes.
Whoa, no.
Yeah.
What did you do?
I was at work. I was making deliveries and I just kept making my deliveries and like it would even stop and wait for me.
Oh.
And yeah, but it was never close enough to where I could see it or anything, but it was following me, man.
Wow. Dang.
That's just an example of another really weird story that happened to me and that could have happened to you. You don't have to have a UFO encounter. You don't have to have seen the ghost of your grandmother. You don't have to know what Bigfoot smells like to have had a weird story. Basically, what we're saying is weird covers a lot of ground here on the What's Your Weird Story podcast. And we love hearing all of your stories, whether they're spooky, they're funny, they're bizarre, or they're just short, sweet, and unexplained. Kind of like our podcast.
Wow, Gabby, that was amazing. Amazing stories. Really.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, you said it all.
Yeah. It's wild because we had that, you know, we started off with this cryptid because I mean that's what it is. You know, we I don't think we ever used the cryptid word to describe it in the conversation with Gabby. Where we started off with this cryptid, this weird humanoid thing, and you know, I mean, there's so much of that could be explored so much further. But then, you know, of course, we always grow and we go into these other things. So like, well, it sounds like, you know, your grandparents may live on a quasi-haunted farm, and you also may have both of your parents have a quasi-haunted house. Yeah. And, you know, these are things that, Gabby hadn't thought about, really. You know,
right.
You know, and then there was some lights in the sky near doing aerial formations and stuff there, you know.
And they were totally different houses too.
Right.
Like it was her dad's townhouse, and then I think her mom's home that her sister had the haunted room in, which I'm convinced now is a haunted room.
Me too. Yeah. Me too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And not like happy haunted. Like if they're anytime I hear about things actually flying, I'm like, ooh, that's not a happy guy.
Yeah.
And you know, I was just, and this is me thinking too, if there were more things flying, if it was more stuff like that, it could have been like a poltergeist. And poltergeists are usually active or attracted to like pubescent girls. And so her sister was little, or Gabby was little. Maybe they were around that age. I don't know. I don't remember her saying, but it could have been something like that. Then again, it might just be some lingering spirit of people that lived there, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. The weird, you know, UFO stuff, the, you know, lights in the sky and stuff like that. I mean, you know, she had a lot more than what she thought, I think, when she initially came on, which is great. And it is one of those things where it's like, you're experiencing these things, you put them in the back of your mind, you don't think about them. I mean, she just said, you know, in when we were talking to her, that she didn't even talk about this with her own family, you know, so you put it back in the back of your mind, you don't think about it until you're put in a situation where you're talking about stuff and you're like, oh man, yeah, I remember this now. I had a weird story here, you know, the bathroom that was, you know, a haunted bathroom or a weird bathroom that gave weird vibes to people. You know, that's just that's the kind of stuff that's gold to me. I love that stuff, you know, because it's very off the cuff and it's just a part of the conversation.
Well, and you've got all these new connections that you didn't realize you had made before that. You start talking about it, and that's why it starts bringing other stuff up.
Yep. Yeah. Yep.
And you don't, as they're happening, she probably never related those things to each other.
Yeah.
But the amount and that her whole family was experiencing it, I feel like they're definitely somehow related.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. I think there's a lot of it that's going on that's related around because there's so much of in her family, you know. And maybe they're like a kind of a low level sensitive to the to spirits or something like that. They're not fully be able to like perceive them visually or see them, but maybe they have that. Maybe they're empathic to them.
Yeah. I still want to know more about her grandma.
Yeah.
Like I have a feeling her grandma is cool.
Yeah.
I got a feeling that grandma's got some stories too.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Yeah, and hopefully we'll get her back. You tell us some more crazy stuff. And speaking of that, if you guys got any crazy stories, man, we love to hear them. We love to hear them. This is what this is all about. It's a community of people talking. It's a place where you can just let it all out there, and you're going to be met with open arms and people that have similar stories.
Yeah, you don't have to hide on Reddit. We have a Skype now.
That's right.
Talk in person about these things.
Exactly.
And not be embarrassed.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, and again, like we definitely don't want people to. We want to get rid of the kind of awkward feelings. We want people to be able to share those and not feel embarrassed about it. And because honestly, I think everybody's got some kind of experience at one point in their life where it's just like, it could be fully high strangeness where they don't know what was going on. Like, you seeing some kind of cryptid or seeing a UFO landing on your front yard, or it could just be something, weird, like a strange series of coincidences, something that happened, and that you just either dwell on it and you think on it and you keep that in your mind, or you just push it to the side because you don't.
Right.
And I think a lot of us spend a lot of time pushing stuff to the side that we don't want to think about because that's human nature.
Yep. And
then all of a sudden, something pops up, and then like we were saying earlier, it's like one thing comes up and then you talk about it and then all these other things bubble up to the top, and we want to be here to be your bubbling memory buddies. Something. I don't know.
It sounds great. It sounds great. Whatever.
Yeah, so here we are. What's your weird story? Bubbling memories together. So.
Oh, that's great. Well, Bobby, thank you again for coming on too and doing such great work and finding a great guest, and hopefully we can get more Reddit folks on. That'd be great.
Oh yeah, there's plenty of cooking going on on Reddit.
Great.
Lots of bubble.
That's awesome.
Happy to do it.
Awesome. Well, hey, once again, Gabby, thank you for joining us, and Bobby, thank you for joining us for your first appearance. She'll be back, folks. And we will too. We'll be back next week, in fact, with more stories of Weirdsville and weird villains and soon to be weird villains and people who were deciding if they're going to join us here in Weirdsville or not would probably actually have already decided to join us in Weirdsville because they will be a guest and future guests, just like you and all your friends who could possibly be future guests. Everybody has the potential within them to be a citizen of Weirdsville. Yeah. I mean, and everything is what you want it to be there, but it's weird.
It is weird. It is weird.
In the best way possible. So anyway, thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a good week. We'll see you next time on What's Your Weird Story. Be safe.
Be weird.
As always, if you have a weird story, we want to hear it.
If you have a lot of them, we want to hear them all.
We can't do this podcast without your invaluable contributions.
Whether it's sharing your stories,
listening,
rating,
and spreading the word about the podcast. Thanks for listening. Until next time, be safe.
Be weird.
The stories presented on the What's Your Weird Story podcast are, to our knowledge, true experiences that our guests have had. We can't take the time to research all claims made, and besides, it's just not as fun.